I'm writing this because I need people to know the truth. I need someone, anyone, to believe me before it's too late. My hands are shaking as I type this, and I keep looking over my shoulder, even though I know I'm alone in this house. The ankle monitor around my leg is a constant reminder that I'm trapped here, unable to physically go out to warn anyone about what's coming. So I am left with leaving my story here. My name is Isaac. I'm 29, and 3 months ago I thought I had my life figured out. I'd just gotten a promotion at my insurance firm that required relocating from Chicago to this small city in Ohio. The pay bump was substantial, and I was excited for a fresh start. I found this perfect little house on the outskirts of town, 3 bedrooms, hardwood floors, and a back deck that faced west so I could watch the sunset every evening with a beer in hand. The neighborhood was quiet, mostly older couples who kept to themselves. For the first time in years, I felt genuinely content. The house came partly furnished, which was a blessing since I was starting over. The previous owner, an elderly woman named Mrs. Grace, had passed away, and her family just wanted to sell quickly. I closed on the house within 3 weeks of my offer. Everything was perfect for exactly 3 months and 4 days. I know this because I'd been keeping track, proud of how well I was settling in. My work performance was stellar. I'd started a small garden in the backyard, and I was finally sleeping through the night consistently for the first time since college. Then it started again. The sleep paralysis. I hadn't experienced it since I was a kid, maybe 8 or 9 years old. Back then, it would happen maybe once a month. I'd wake up, unable to move, feeling like something was pressing down on my chest, sensing a presence in the room that I couldn't quite see. My mom took me to doctors who explained it was just a sleep disorder, that my brain was waking up before my body, causing hallucinations. Eventually, it just stopped happening, and I'd almost forgotten about it entirely. But this time was different from the start. The first episode happened on a Tuesday night. I remember, because I'd had a particularly good day at work. I landed a new client, got praise from my boss. I felt like I was really hitting my stride in this new city. I went to bed around 10 p.m., same as always, but I woke up at exactly 2:23 a.m. I know the exact time because I could see my digital clock, but I couldn't move my head to look at it directly. I was completely paralyzed, but unlike when I was a child, I felt completely alert and aware. There was something in the room with me. I couldn't see it clearly. It was more of a shadow that seemed to move independently of any light source. It was tall, maybe 7 feet, and it moved with this awful fluid motion that made my skin crawl. I watched it glide from the corner of my room to the foot of my bed where it just stood there. I could feel it looking at me, studying me, even though I couldn't make out any features. The paralysis broke after what felt like hours, but was probably only minutes. The shadow was gone, but the terror lingered. I got up, turned on every light in the house, and made coffee even though it was 3 a.m. I told myself it was just stress from the new job, the new environment. It would pass. It didn't pass. It got worse. The next episode happened 4 days later. Same time, 2:23 a.m. exactly. This time the shadow wasn't alone. There were 2 of them, moving around my room like they were inspecting it. One stood by my dresser while the other glided to my window. I watched in horror as it seemed to examine the window frame, running what might have been fingers along the glass. By the 3rd week, it was happening every other night. The shadows multiplied. 3, then 5, then too many to count. They moved through my room like they owned it, paying me no attention except for the occasional pause to stare in my direction. I started hearing sounds, soft whispers that I couldn't quite make out, the creak of floorboards, and most terrifying of all, the sound of my front door opening and closing. During the day, I'd check the locks obsessively. I installed a security system, changed the locks, even had the house blessed by a priest from the local Catholic church. Father Martinez was kind, but skeptical. "Sometimes our minds play tricks on us when we're under stress," he said gently. "But I'll pray for your peace of mind." The blessing didn't help. If anything, it seemed to make them angry. The next episode was the worst yet. I woke up at 2:23 a.m. It was always 2:23 a.m., and my room was packed with shadows. They filled every corner, some standing so close to my bed, I could have reached out and touched them if I could move my arms. They were whispering constantly now, a low murmur that seemed to come from everywhere at once. And for the first time, I heard my name. "Isaac," they whispered. "Isaac." Over and over like a chant. The shadows near my bed leaned in closer. Though I couldn't make out their faces, I could feel their attention, like a physical weight. One of them bent down near my ear, and I could feel something that might have been breath, cold and rotten smelling. It whispered something in a language I didn't recognize. Words that sounded urgent and hungry, but I had no idea what they meant or what they wanted from me. I started staying awake as long as possible, drinking energy drinks and coffee, taking cold showers, anything to avoid sleep. But you can't fight biology forever. I'd pass out from exhaustion, and every time I did, I'd wake up at 2:23 a.m. with them surrounding me. My work performance started suffering. I was making mistakes, missing deadlines, falling asleep in meetings. My boss called me in for a talk, asking if everything was okay at home. I wanted to tell him the truth, but how do you explain that your house is filled with shadows that whisper sweet nothings in your ear all night? Then came the night that changed everything. I'd been asleep for maybe 3 hours when I found myself standing in the corner of my room, looking down at my own body in the bed. I wasn't dreaming, I was fully conscious and aware. But somehow I was outside of my physical form. My body lay still and peaceful, breathing slowly. But around it was a crowd of at least 30 dark figures. They were clearer now that I was whatever I was. The sight of them made my spiritual form recoil in horror. These weren't just shadows anymore. They were grotesque mockeries of human form, each one more terrifying than the last. The closest one to my bed was impossibly tall and emaciated. Its limbs stretched like taffy until they were twice the length they should be. Its fingers ended in needle-sharp points that clicked against each other as it moved. Where a face should have been was a hollow void, except for 2 burning red orbs that pulsed like dying coals. When it turned those crimson eyes toward me, I felt a heat that seemed to sear my very soul. Another entity near the window was shorter but far more disturbing. Its body appeared to be made of writhing shadows that constantly shifted and reformed, as if it couldn't decide what shape to take. Bright yellow eyes blazed from what might have been its head, not just 2, but dozens of them, blinking independently like a spider's cluster of eyes. Each yellow orb seemed to track different parts of me, studying me with predatory intelligence. But the most terrifying ones had bright blue eyes. One stood at the foot of my bed, and I could barely look at it directly. Its form was vaguely humanoid, but wrong in every conceivable way. Its head was elongated and bulbous, covered in what looked like wet, glistening skin that reflected the dim light. The creature's mouth was a vertical gash that split its face from forehead to chin, lined with rows of teeth that weren't quite teeth, more like broken glass arranged in a smile. But it was the eyes that made me want to scream. Electric blue, so bright they hurt to look at. They seemed to see not just me, but through me, into every dark corner of my soul. When that thing focused its blue gaze on me, I felt utterly exposed, as if it could see every shameful thought I'd ever had, every weakness, every fear. The others were equally horrifying. Creatures with too many joints in their arms, beings whose skin appeared to be made of writhing maggots, entities that flickered between human and something else entirely. Some had eyes like molten gold that dripped liquid fire, Others had crimson orbs that seemed to contain swirling galaxies of rage. But scattered among them were more of those with the piercing blue eyes, the ones that radiated an intelligence so alien and malevolent that looking at them felt like staring into an abyss that stared back with predatory hunger. One of them was bent over my sleeping body, its mouth near my ear, whispering in that strange language. The others formed a circle around the bed, swaying slightly like they were performing some kind of ritual. I could sense their intense focus on my physical form, but I couldn't understand what they wanted or why they were so interested in me. Then they all looked up at me at once. 30 pairs of glowing eyes fixed on me, and I understood with crystal clarity that I was in terrible danger. They knew I was there, floating above them, and they were angry that I'd seen them. The one bent over my body straightened up and pointed at me, hissing something that made the others agitated. They started moving toward where I hovered, reaching up with those two long arms, their intent unmistakably hostile. In complete panic, I dove toward my body. The moment I made contact with it, I woke up gasping, my heart hammering against my ribs. The room was ice cold. I could see my breath, and I could still feel their presence like a weight in the air. Every shadow seemed to move independently, every corner held watching eyes. I threw on clothes and drove around until sunrise, too terrified to stay in the house. But I couldn't live like this forever. I needed help. And I knew the medical establishment wouldn't believe me, so I turned to the internet. I spent hours scouring Reddit, paranormal forums, anywhere people discussed supernatural experiences. Most of it was obviously fake or delusional, but then I found a post that made my blood run cold. A woman in Oregon described almost exactly what I was experiencing: the paralysis, the shadows, the sense of being watched. The post was old, but in the comments, someone had recommended a psychic medium named Tamara who specialized in spiritual oppression and demonic harassment. I found her website, Third Eye Emporium. Tamara's bio described her as having 20 years of experience helping people who were being spiritually attacked by entities, seeking to cause harm or gain access to the physical realm. Her photo showed a woman in her early 50s with strawberry blonde hair and bright green eyes. She was thin and looked younger than her actual age, with the kind of face that suggested both wisdom and kindness. The testimonials were what convinced me. Dozens of people describing experiences similar to mine, all claiming Tamara had helped them. One review from a man in Texas made me nearly cry with relief. I was being tormented by shadow people for months. Tamara saved my life and my sanity. She's the real deal. I called in sick to work. My boss was understanding, probably assuming I was dealing with my personal issues. I contacted Tamara through her website. She called me back within an hour. "Isaac," she said, and her voice was exactly what I'd hoped for. Calm, confident, and completely without judgment. "Tell me what's been happening." I told her everything, from the first shadow to the out-of-body experience. She listened without interrupting, occasionally making small sounds of understanding. When I finished, there was a long pause. "How long since the first incident?" she asked. "About 6 weeks." Another pause. "And they're speaking your name now?" "Yes, every night." "Isaac, I need you to understand something. What you're describing is very serious. This isn't just sleep paralysis or stress-related hallucinations. You're dealing with entities that want something from you, and they're getting bolder. I can help you, but it's going to require significant energy from both of us, and it won't be cheap." She quoted me a price, $5,000 deposit, with the final cost depending on how complex the situation proved to be. It was more money than I'd ever spent on anything besides my car and my house. But I didn't hesitate. "When can you be here?" I asked. "I can drive down this afternoon. I'm in Columbus, so it's about a 2-hour drive. Can you take some time off work?" "I already took the whole week off." "Good, you're going to need it." She arrived at 4 p.m., driving a beat-up Honda Civic with bumper stickers for various New Age shops and a coexist symbol. I'd been worried she'd be some theatrical fake with crystal balls and flowing robes, but Tamara looked exactly like her photo, a woman in her early 50s with strawberry blonde hair and green eyes, wearing jeans and a sweater, carrying a worn leather bag. Despite being in her 50s, she had a youthful energy about her. "Nice house," she said, looking up at the facade. "How long has it been empty before you moved in?" "Maybe a month. The previous owner died here, but her family sold it pretty quickly to me." Tamara nodded thoughtfully. "Sometimes they leave things behind. Not belongings, impressions. We'll see." She spent the next 3 hours walking through every room in the house, sometimes stopping to close her eyes and stand still for several minutes. She ran her hands along walls, examined windows and doorways, and paid particular attention to my bedroom. I followed her around like a nervous dog, desperate for answers. Finally, she sat down at my kitchen table and shook her head. "Isaac, I need to tell you something that might be difficult to hear. Your house isn't haunted. There's no spiritual presence here at all. No residual energy from the previous owner, no trapped spirits, nothing. The house is completely spiritually neutral." My heart sank. Then what's been happening to me? That's what we need to figure out. But if it's not the house, then it's something else. Something that's following you specifically, or something that's been drawn to you for another reason. She opened her bag and pulled out bundles of dried sage, small crystals, and what looked like a handmade wooden cross. "I'm going to cleanse the space anyway, just to be thorough. Sometimes a good spiritual cleaning can create a barrier, even against entities that aren't housebound." She spent the next hour burning sage in every room, placing crystals at various points around the house, and muttering prayers in what sounded like Latin. The smell of the sage was overwhelming but somehow comforting. When she finished, she gave me a small obsidian pendant. "Wear this tonight," she said. "It's for protection, and I want you to call me the moment you wake up, no matter what time it is. I'll be staying at the motel on Route 9, about 10 minutes away." That night, I went to bed with more hope than I'd felt in weeks. The pendant felt warm against my chest, and the sage smell still lingered in the air. Maybe Tamara had been right. Maybe a good spiritual cleaning was all I needed. I fell asleep around 10:30 p.m., and for the first time in weeks, I slept peacefully. I woke up paralyzed as usual, but this time was different. The shadows were there, but they seemed agitated, pacing around the room like caged animals. The one that usually stood by my bed was at the window, apparently trying to get out. Others were clustered near the door, moving in and out in rapid succession like they were testing some kind of barrier. Then, I saw myself, laying peacefully in my bed. I realized I was outside of my body again, floating near the ceiling. But this time, they noticed me pretty quickly. The shadows could see me, and they were furious. 3 of them rushed toward my floating form, reaching with those terrible long arms. But before they could grab me, I was yanked backward through the wall and found myself standing in my backyard. I turned around and saw Tamara, not physical Tamara, but a glowing, translucent version of her. Her spiritual form was surrounded by bright white light that hurt to look at directly. "Isaac," she said, her voice echoing strangely. "You need to get back to your body immediately. Something's wrong." We rushed back through the wall into my bedroom. The shadows were in a frenzy now, some of them actually touching my physical body, their hands passing through it like smoke. The largest one had its face inches from mine, whispering frantically in that unknown language. "Go," Tamara's spirit said, pushing me toward my body. "Get back in there now." I dove toward my physical form, but just as I was about to make contact, I felt myself being grabbed from behind. cold, strong hands wrapped around my spiritual arms, yanking me backward. One of the shadows had caught me, and it was pulling me away from my body with incredible strength. I could see Tamara's spirit fighting with two other entities, her white light flashing like a strobe as she tried to drive them back, but there were too many of them, and the one holding me was dragging me toward the window. "Let go of me," I screamed, but no sound came out. The shadow holding me brought its face close to mine, and for the first time I could see its features clearly. It was one of the blue-eyed ones, the worst kind. Its head was an abomination of flesh and bone that seemed to have been melted and reformed by some cosmic torture. The skin was translucent and gray like a drowned corpse, with black veins visible underneath that pulsed with a sickly rhythm. Its nose was nothing but two gaping holes that wheezed with each breath, and when it opened its mouth, I saw not just teeth but tiny writhing appendages that looked like fingers, all reaching toward me. But the eyes, God, those electric blue eyes. They burned with an intensity that made me feel like my spiritual form was being dissected. They weren't just looking at me, they were reading me, cataloging everything I was and everything I could become. The blue light seemed to pulse in rhythm with my terror, growing brighter as my fear increased. It spoke in perfect, unaccented English. Soon. I didn't understand what it meant, but the threat in its voice was unmistakable. Then, Tamara's spirit slammed into my captor like a missile of white light. The shadow released me with a shriek that I felt rather than heard, and I tumbled back into my physical body so hard that I woke up with a violent jolt. The room was empty and silent, but I could still smell something awful, like rotting meat and sulfur. I grabbed my phone and called Tamara immediately. "Isaac?" Her voice was groggy and tired. "They were trying to take me," I said, the words tumbling out in a rush. I was outside my body again, and one of them grabbed me. It told me, soon. "I'm coming over," she said, suddenly alert. "Don't go back to sleep. Stay awake until I get there." She arrived 20 minutes later, looking exhausted and somehow older than she had that afternoon. There were dark circles under her eyes, and her hands were shaking slightly. "We need to talk," she said, settling heavily into my kitchen chair. "What I experienced tonight, Isaac, I've been doing this for 20 years and I've never encountered anything like what's surrounding you." She was quiet for a long moment, staring at her hands. When she looked up at me, her expression was grave. "I need to tell you something about sleep paralysis, something that most people don't know. The medical establishment has it wrong. It's not just a sleep disorder. It's something much more dangerous." She took a deep breath. "Isaac, when you're experiencing what you think is sleep paralysis, you're actually partially returning from astral projection. Your spirit has been traveling outside your body, and when you try to come back, you're getting stuck halfway between the spiritual and physical realms." I stared at her. "Astral projection? That's real?" "It's absolutely real. Millions of people do it every night without realizing it. They think they're just dreaming, but their souls are actually leaving their bodies and traveling to other places, other dimensions. Most of the time, they return safely and never know what happened. But sometimes," she paused, "sometimes they attract attention." "What kind of attention?" I asked, feeling a chill run down my neck. "Dark entities, demons, shadow people, malevolent spirits. They exist in the spaces between our world and others, constantly looking for ways to enter our realm. Without a true physical form, their only way into our world is through the bodies of animals or humans, and it's humans they want most of all. When your soul leaves your body through astral projection, even briefly, your body becomes vulnerable to possession. These entities gather around like vultures, waiting for their opportunity." The revelation hit me like a physical blow. The thought of my soul leaving my body being that vulnerable, that exposed, it filled me with dread. Now she was telling me I'd been doing it involuntarily. "I don't want to astral project," I said firmly. "Is there a way to stop it completely?" "That's what we're going to try to do," she said gently. "But Isaac, you need to understand. Once someone starts projecting regularly, it's very difficult to stop. It's like your soul has learned a new pathway and keeps following it. We need to break that pattern before the entities realize what's happening. The terror was overwhelming. The idea that they wanted to steal my body, lock my soul out, and take over my life was beyond horrifying. I have to stop projecting, I said desperately. There has to be a way to keep my soul in my body. We'll try, Tamara said softly, but resisting the projection might worsen the paralysis temporarily. Your soul will fight to leave and you'll get stuck in that in-between state longer. I don't care. I never want to project again. She leaned closer, her voice steady and low. Isaac, there are 3 possible outcomes once these entities have their eyes on you. First, they can try to enter your body while you're gone. Normally, your natural spiritual barriers protect you, as long as you return quickly. But if they prevent your return long enough, those barriers weaken, giving them a chance to slip in and take control permanently, locking you out forever. My pulse quickened. She continued. Second, they might follow your soul back, slipping through the door before it closes. You might not even realize it at first. Mood swings, aggression, new habits, subtle signs that you're no longer alone in your own body. My mouth went dry. And the third way? Her eyes darkened. The worst outcome. If they manage to enter your body first as your soul returns, they'll lock you out entirely. You'd wander endlessly with no body to return to while they live your life. My breathing grew shallow. This entire time I'd assumed they were tormenting me, trying to scare me. I never imagined their true goal was to replace me completely. This partial return state, what you call sleep paralysis, is the moment you're most vulnerable, she explained further. You're caught between realms, partially inside your body, but not fully reconnected. That's why you see them clearly, gathered around, waiting. Why are there so many of them around me? I asked weakly. Because they sense your weakening connection. You're losing the fight, Isaac, and they've spread the word. Dozens are gathering because they know soon one of them will claim your body permanently. The room felt colder, oppressive. This wasn't just a nuisance or harmless fear. This was a battle for my very soul. Science likes to dismiss night terrors, sleepwalking, and paralysis as simple neurological events, Tamara continued solemnly. But, in truth, these phenomena are gateways exploited by dark entities. Night terrors are often direct attacks, meant to terrorize and weaken spiritual defenses. Sleepwalking is usually partial possession, where an entity exerts control over the body temporarily, guiding it physically. Children are often targeted because their spiritual barriers are weaker, more permeable. Adults become vulnerable too, especially if their mental, emotional, or spiritual states are compromised. It's never just a dream, Isaac. It's always something more sinister, trying to claw its way into our reality. I looked at her, desperation rising. So what you're saying is I'm screwed. She met my gaze, steady but somber. Not yet, but the fight will be harder than anything you've faced. You need to prepare. Despite my terror, I was relieved that she wasn't abandoning me. What do you need me to do? Just follow your normal bedtime routine tonight. I'll set up in your guest room and project my own spirit to watch over you. If things get too dangerous, I'll intervene like I did tonight. Is that really safe for you to do? She gave me a tired smile. Probably not. But I can't help you if I don't understand what's happening. And honestly, Isaac, I've never encountered anything this significant before. If we can figure out how to stop it, it could help a lot of other people who are going through the same thing. I wanted to tell her not to risk herself for me, but I was too desperate for help. Okay, what time should I go to bed? Your normal time. I need to see the natural pattern. So the plan was set. We were just waiting for nightfall. We spent most of the day talking about our past and what brought us to where we were in life. We enjoyed a hearty dinner before she began to prepare for the battle that was to come. She disappeared into the guest room around 6 p.m., carrying a bag full of crystals, candles, and other items I couldn't identify. I could hear her moving around, setting things up, occasionally murmuring what sounded like incantations. I tried to follow my normal routine, but everything felt surreal. I showered, brushed my teeth, and put on pajamas, while knowing that in a few hours, my soul would be ripped from my body, and I'd be fighting for my life against creatures that wanted to steal everything I was. I climbed into bed at 10 p.m. and tried every technique I could think of to prevent astral projection. I focused intensely on staying in my body, on keeping my soul anchored to my physical form. I repeated mantras, visualized roots growing from my body into the mattress, anything to prevent myself from projecting. At some point, I drifted off to sleep. I awoke and found myself floating in the corner of my bedroom anyway. The projection had happened against my will, despite everything I'd tried to prevent it. I was learning that once your soul develops the habit of leaving your body, conscious resistance might not be enough to stop it. The next thing I knew, I was floating in the corner of my bedroom looking down at my sleeping body. But something was different this time. The room was completely empty, no shadows, no entities, nothing. My body lay peacefully in the bed, breathing steadily. I felt a moment of incredible relief. Maybe Tamara's protections had worked. Maybe the nightmare was finally over. Then I heard footsteps in the hallway, and Tamara's spirit form walked through the bedroom wall. She was glowing with the same white light as before, but brighter now, more intense. "Isaac," she said, her voice filled with satisfaction. "It worked. The protections I set up have created a barrier. The entities can't get near your body." I wanted to cry with relief. "They're really gone?" "For now, but we need to get you back into your body quickly before they figure out a way around the barriers. This is only a temporary solution." I nodded and started moving toward my physical form. But as I got closer, I noticed something strange. The white light around Tamara was flickering, and her face looked different, older, more angular. "Tamara," I said, stopping about 3 feet from my body. "Are you okay?" She smiled, but the expression didn't reach her eyes. "I'm fine, Isaac. Just tired from maintaining the protective barrier. Go ahead and return to your body. We'll talk more in the morning." Something felt wrong, but I couldn't put my finger on what. I took another step toward my sleeping form, then stopped again. The air in the room had changed. It felt thick and oppressive, like the moment before a thunderstorm. "Tamara, I think something's..." The lights went out. Not the electric lights, they hadn't been on, but Tamara's spiritual glow suddenly dimmed to almost nothing. And in the sudden darkness, I heard the sound I'd been dreading. Whispers. They came from every direction at once, growing louder by the second. The temperature plummeted so quickly that I could see my breath, even in my spiritual form. And then they began pouring into the room. Shadows poured through the windows like smoke, squeezed under the door, and seemed to seep directly through the walls. Within seconds, the room was packed with more entities than I'd ever seen before. The grotesque variety of them was overwhelming. Creatures that defied description crawled over each other in their eagerness to get closer to my defenseless body. I saw beings with skin that appeared to be made of insects, constantly moving and reshaping as beetles and centipedes crawled in and out of their flesh. Others had multiple faces scattered across their torsos, each one bearing eyes of different colors. Some red, like fresh blood, others yellow, like infected wounds, and the most terrifying ones blazing with that electric blue light that seemed to burn straight through to my soul. One entity near the door had arms that split into dozens of smaller appendages, each ending in tiny human hands that grasped at the air. Its single eye, a massive yellow orb that took up most of its malformed head, never stopped staring at me as saliva dripped from its multiple mouths. But the blue-eyed ones were the worst. They moved with purpose, with intelligence. While the red and yellow-eyed creatures seemed driven by hunger and rage, the blue-eyed entities watched everything with calculating coldness. They were the generals in this army of horrors, and when they looked at me, I felt like a specimen being studied before dissection. "What happened to the barriers?" I screamed at Tamara. She turned to look at me, and I saw that her eyes were no longer their normal green color. They were glowing with that same horrible bright blue that I'd seen in the most intelligent and terrifying entities. But in Tamara's human face, the effect was even more disturbing, like seeing a beloved pet suddenly reveal itself as a predator. "There never were any barriers," she said, her voice now layered with other tones, as if multiple beings were speaking through her at once. "We needed you to feel safe, so you would project willingly. You've been so difficult to catch when you're panicked." The thing wearing Tamara's face smiled, revealing teeth that were too sharp, too numerous. "Thank you for trusting us, Isaac. This will make the transition so much easier." I spun around looking for an escape route, but the entities had surrounded me completely. They were reaching for me with dozens of clawed hands, their eyes blazing with hunger and triumph. The largest of them, a shadow that seemed to tower 9 feet tall, stepped forward. This one was clearly their leader, its form more solid and defined than the others, with skin that looked like charred leather stretched over impossibly long bones. Its face was a nightmare of asymmetry, with one side appearing almost human, while the other was a mass of melted flesh and exposed sinew. But both sides had eyes. The human side bore a single red eye that wept tears of blood, while the ruined side had 3 bright blue orbs arranged in a triangle, each one containing what looked like tiny screaming faces. When it spoke, its voice was like grinding stone mixed with the sound of children crying. "We have been patient," it said. "We have been careful, but patience has its limits." It reached for me with arms that stretched impossibly long, and I did the only thing I could think of. I dove toward my body as hard as I could, hoping to reach it before they could stop me. I almost made it. Just as I was about to make contact with my physical form, something grabbed me from behind. Not just one entity, multiple shadows seized different parts of my spiritual body with appendages that felt like ice-cold iron wrapped in rotting flesh. I could feel their various eyes burning into me, the red ones filled with mindless hunger, the yellow ones gleaming with sadistic pleasure, and the blue ones calculating exactly how to tear me apart. They began pulling me in different directions, and I could feel myself being stretched, torn. "Let go!" I screamed, struggling against their hold. The tall entity leaned in close to my face. "Your body will serve us, and so will your soul." Then I saw the real Tamara. She was huddled in the corner of the room, her spiritual form flickering weakly like a dying light bulb. She was covered in what looked like spiritual wounds, dark gashes that leaked light instead of blood. The entities had been torturing her. "Isaac," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "Fight them. Don't let them." One of the shadows struck her, and she crumpled to the floor. Rage flooded through me. These things had hurt someone who was trying to help me, and now they were going to steal everything I was. With a strength I didn't know I possessed, I tore free from their grasp and launched myself at my body. I hit my physical form like a meteor, the impact so violent that I woke up with a scream that tore my throat raw. Every muscle in my body was cramping, and I was drenched in sweat despite the freezing air. The room was empty, but I could hear sounds coming from downstairs. Thumping, dragging, and something that might have been screaming. I grabbed my phone and started to dial 911. But before I could press send, motion alerts lit up my screen, pulsing with urgency. My heart pounded as I opened the security app. What I saw stopped me cold. Tamara was being dragged by an unseen force, her body sliding helplessly down the hallway, then the stairs, and finally vanishing into the darkness of the basement. I didn't hesitate. I shot to my feet and bolted after her. I found her in the basement, unconscious and bloody. Her face was swollen beyond recognition, her clothes torn, and there were scratches and bite marks covering her arms and legs. It looked like she'd been attacked by a pack of wild animals. I quickly called 911. The paramedics arrived within 10 minutes, followed closely by the police. As they worked on Tamara, loading her onto a stretcher, the cops started asking me questions. "Sir, Can you tell us what happened here tonight? I tried to explain, but how do you tell police officers that your psychic medium was attacked by demons while trying to save your soul? I stuck to the basics. Tamara was helping me with a spiritual problem. I heard sounds from downstairs. I found her injured in the basement. But that explanation fell apart when they checked my security cameras. I'd installed the system weeks earlier, equipped with cameras throughout the house, hoping to catch evidence of the supernatural activity. The cameras covered every room in the house, including the basement. I was confident they would show whatever had attacked Tamara, or at least prove that I had been asleep in my bed when it happened. Instead, they found that all footage from the past 3 days was missing. "Sir," the detective said, his voice carefully neutral, "your security system shows no recorded footage from the time period in question. Can you explain why?" I stared at him in disbelief. "That's impossible. The system was working fine. It should have recorded everything. The deletion appears to have been done manually from your main computer system. Do you have any explanation for why you would delete 3 days worth of security footage?" I didn't. And without the footage, I had no way to prove my innocence. The circumstantial evidence was damning. Tamara was found injured in my basement. I was the only other person in the house. The security footage that could have exonerated me was mysteriously deleted. I had no alibi, no witnesses, and no explanation for what had really happened. "Sir," the detective continued, "we're going to need you to come with us." I was arrested for assault. At the station, they laid out their case. I had lured Tamara to my house under false pretenses, attacked her when she tried to leave, and then deleted the security footage to cover my tracks. Without video evidence to support my claims about supernatural activity, my story sounded like the ravings of someone having a mental breakdown. I tried to explain about the astral projection, the entities, and the possession attempt, but they looked at me like I was having a psychotic break. My lawyer advised me to consider an insanity plea. I was released on bail with an ankle monitor and a restraining order. I could leave my house, but I had to stay at least 200 feet away from Tamara, her home, and her shop. The monitor tracked my location to make sure I obeyed. The next morning, my boss called to fire me. "We just can't have someone with such serious pending charges like this working for us," he said. "I'm sorry, Isaac." I barely heard him. I spent the next week in a haze, drifting through the days, disconnected, replaying the night over and over again. Not because I didn't remember, but because I did. I remembered the thing in my hallway. I remembered Tamara being dragged. I remembered the screaming. Not hers, not mine, but something else. Something I still couldn't put into words. They told me I beat her unconscious, that the trauma was so severe that she slipped into a coma. But I know what I saw on the cameras. I know I didn't do that to her. Then the hospital called. Tamara had woken up. She was speaking, coherent, and telling the police everything. According to her, I had lured her to my home under false pretenses. I'd become obsessed after finding her website. When she tried to leave, I snapped. She said I held her against her will, ranted about demons and spirits, then beat her until she lost consciousness. The prosecutors took her statement as gospel. They were building a case around assault and kidnapping. My attorney said I was looking at a minimum of 15 to 25 years, but none of it made sense. Why would I call 911 immediately after finding her unconscious if I was trying to hide something? Why would I voluntarily give police access to my camera system, only for the footage from that night to simply not exist? It wasn't corrupted. It wasn't tampered with. It just wasn't there. Like that entire section of time had been erased. And Tamara's account of that night? Well, that was the final nail. My attorney showed me her filmed interview. The Tamara I saw in the video was off. It wasn't just the words she used. It was the way she said them. Flat, detached, like she was describing someone else's memories. The Tamara I knew was thoughtful, kind, warm. The voice on that recording was deeper, empty, like a vacuum behind a human mask. I had to see her. I had to look into her eyes and know for sure. So I made a decision. At 1 a.m., I wrapped my ankle monitor in thick layers of aluminum foil, just enough, I hoped, to delay the signal, and drove nearly 2 hours to her shop, the Third Eye Emporium. It sat in a crumbling strip mall, wedged between a vape lounge and a nail salon. The parking lot was dark, silent. The front door was unlocked. I stepped inside. The air was stale, thick with the scent of extinguished incense and something else, metallic, faintly sweet, like rotting flowers. I walked past dusty shelves of crystals, candles, and cleansing sprays. A light glowed from the back room. I followed it. Tamara was seated at a small, round table, perfectly still, staring at the doorway like she'd been waiting for me the entire time. "Hello, Isaac." Her voice was deeper than I remembered. Lower, hollow, as if the sound were echoing up from a well somewhere inside her. "Tamara, we need to talk," I said. "I know what you told the police, but that's not what happened. You know it's not." She tilted her head slowly, studying me, not like a person, but like a predator examining a wound. "Do we need to talk?" she asked. "I think everything that needed saying has already been said." "No," I said. "It hasn't. What happened that night? What really happened?" Her lips parted into a smile. It was wrong, stretched just a little too wide, held too long. "What happened?" she said, and her voice rippled, low and layered, like a dozen mouths speaking in unison, "is that we won." "We?" "Yes, Isaac. We," she repeated, and this time her voice shattered into layers, male and female, young and ancient, echoing through the room like a chorus of the damned. The air turned glacial, my breath fogged in front of me, and frost bloomed along the window pane. Tamara's eyes erupted into a searing blue light, but they no longer looked like eyes. They were voids lit from within, swirling with something, conscious, watching, hungry. "You're not Tamara," I whispered, every word trembling. She smiled, too wide, too slow, and the corners of her mouth split slightly, as if the skin itself had forgotten how to be human. "No," the thing rasped, voice now a tangle of voices crawling over each other. "Tamara is no more." She resisted, she bled, she prayed, but her screams were exquisite. We fed on her fear until she was nothing but a hollow vessel. Her body is ours now, obedient, emptied, as yours would have been, if you had only stayed still. "Who are you?" I asked, the words catching in my throat like splinters. Her head snapped sideways with a wet, audible pop. Her limbs moved like a puppet's, jerky, unnatural, wrong. And then the voice came, not just heard, but felt, deep in my teeth, in my bones, in the marrow of my soul.
"We are Legion, for we are many."
The lights dimmed. Somewhere beneath the floorboards, something thudded, slow and steady like a second heartbeat growing louder. I couldn't tell if I was swaying or if the walls were breathing. My knees buckled. I grabbed a shelf for balance, but the objects on it vibrated violently, as if recoiling from me. "Where is she?" I gasped. The thing smiled again. Something moved behind her teeth. A flicker, like fingers pressed against the inside of her mouth, trying to claw their way out. "She is gone," it said, almost gently. "Lost in the black between worlds, torn apart, made into pieces small enough to swallow. She gave herself for you, Isaac. She screamed your name as we pulled her soul thread by thread into the dark. And still, it was not enough." I stood frozen, unable to speak, unable to scream. Something ancient was in the room now, not just watching, waiting. And I realized I was already too late. The thing that had been Tamara stood, not rose, stood, One moment she was seated, the next upright. No transition, no muscle movement, just repositioned. She glided a half step forward, and her feet didn't quite touch the floor. The mouth smiled again, as if it remembered how. "You brought your fear with you." I didn't respond. I couldn't. My lungs felt submerged. "You wear it like a second skin," she murmured, tilting her head so slowly it looked like her neck might snap. So easy to see, so easy to use. I tried to speak, tried to say Tamer's name, but all that came out was a breath. From somewhere deeper in the shop, the walls gave a low creak, like something vast was shifting just out of sight. The lights above us dimmed to a sickly yellow, and the shadows lengthened across her face until her features blurred. The only thing clearly visible was her eyes, still that radiant blue, now burning hotter than before. "You want answers," she said, voice curling around me like smoke, "but you will not find them." She blinked, once impossibly slow. When her eyes opened again, they were no longer eyes, but endless tunnels filled with movement, crawling with images and symbols I couldn't understand. It smiled again. "Your time here is ending." Why? Why are you doing this?" I managed. Its smile dropped. "We do not explain ourselves to meet." I heard sirens then, faint but growing louder. The ankle monitor finally betrayed me. Her smile twitched. "They will come," she said. "They will see, and still, they will not know." The shop groaned again, louder now. The shelves trembled and the air seemed to compress. I could feel a pressure against my chest, like I was being pushed backward by nothing at all. I stumbled toward the exit. She didn't follow. "We will see you again, Isaac." That name, my name, carried weight when she spoke it, like she was pinning it to something. To meet us once is misfortune. To meet us twice. She didn't finish. She didn't have to. I ran. As I shoved open the door and staggered into the flashing red and blue outside, I glanced back once. Just once. The shop was dark again. Empty. Tamara, whatever had worn her, was gone. Footsteps pounded across the pavement behind me. "Hands in the air! Now!" someone shouted. I didn't resist. I raised my hands and dropped to my knees on the cracked sidewalk, never taking my eyes off the shop. The police arrested me in the parking lot. This time, there was no bail. I was remanded to custody pending trial, and my lawyer informed me that, given the violation of my previous bail conditions, I would likely remain in jail until the trial concluded. But 3 days later, something unexpected happened. My lawyer filed an emergency appeal, claiming new evidence had come to light. A judge granted a hearing, and somehow, I still don't understand the legal technicalities, I was released on house arrest with a GPS monitor. "I don't understand what happened," my lawyer told me as he drove me home. "The prosecutor seemed almost eager to agree to house arrest instead of keeping you in custody. Usually, they fight tooth and nail to keep assault defendants locked up. I knew somehow there was more to it. Who or what was behind my release? I could only speculate. When I got home, I immediately checked a Third Eye Emporium website. It had been completely redesigned, gone with a warm, comforting testimonials and Tamara's grandmother-like photo. The new site was sleek and professional, with Tamara's photo updated, same smile, same pose, but her eyes weren't green anymore. They were blue, not just blue, slightly, glowing, faintly, almost unnaturally. You'd miss it if you weren't looking closely, but once you saw it, you couldn't unsee it. The services page made my blood run cold. Intensive overnight spiritual therapy. For clients experiencing severe astral projection disturbances, entity harassment, or soul displacement issues. Dr. Tamara specializes in personalized one-on-one therapy sessions in the comfort of your own home. During these sessions, Dr. Tamara will monitor your spiritual activity while you sleep, providing protection and guidance as your soul travels between realms. This revolutionary treatment has shown remarkable success in eliminating unwanted spiritual attachments and restoring healthy astral projection patterns. Dr. Tamara's overnight therapy completely changed my life. I was being tormented by shadow people for months, but after just one session, they disappeared completely. I sleep peacefully now. Marcus T., Cleveland. I can't recommend Dr. Tamara highly enough. Her knowledge of astral projection and spiritual protection is incredible. She saved me from entities that were trying to steal my body. Sarah M. Toledo. After years of sleep paralysis and supernatural harassment, Dr. Tamara's treatment finally gave me relief. The overnight sessions are intense, but completely effective. David K., Columbus. Reading those reviews, I knew exactly what had happened to Marcus, Sarah, and David. Their bodies were walking around, going to their jobs, living their lives, but the souls that had originally inhabited them were gone forever, trapped in the spiritual realm, wandering as lost spirits. The entities had perfect human vessels now, and no one would ever know the difference. But even more terrifying was thinking about how many others were out there, still alive but sharing their bodies with these parasitic entities without even knowing it. For every soul that gets completely locked out, there are probably dozens more who return to find these creatures already nestled inside them, cohabitating silently, influencing their thoughts and behaviors while staying hidden. How many people are walking around right now with one of these things whispering in their subconscious? How many mood swings, angry outbursts, or personality changes are actually signs that someone is no longer alone in their own body? The most terrifying part was how many people had left 5-star reviews in just 3 days. Dozens of them, all glowing testimonials from people whose lives had been completely transformed by Tamara's overnight therapy. Every night I fall asleep, I can feel myself slowly losing this battle. I fall asleep around 10 p.m. and despite my desperate attempts to prevent it, I still project at 2:23 a.m. I've tried everything, meditation, sleeping pills, even staying awake for days at a time, but nothing stops the projection from happening. My soul seems to have learned this terrible pathway, and I can't break free from it. Each night I spend hours fighting to get back to my body while they try to claim it. Each night they get a little stronger, a little more coordinated. Each night I get a little more tired and my resistance to the unwanted astral projection gets weaker. I can feel myself weakening. Last night, one of them managed to get partially into my body before I fought it out. For about 30 seconds, I couldn't control my left arm. It moved on its own, reaching for my throat. I know I don't have much time left. Maybe a few more nights, maybe a week. Eventually, I'll be too exhausted to fight them off, and they'll succeed in locking me out of my own body permanently. But that is not why I am writing this. I'm writing this because I've been monitoring the Third Eye Emporium website obsessively, and the number of reviews keeps growing. Every day, more people are scheduling overnight sessions with the thing that's wearing Tamara's body. More souls are being fed to the entities that destroyed my life. And I helped make it possible. The weight of it never leaves me. I didn't just fail to save myself, I gave them everything they needed. Before me, they hunted in shadows, waiting for the rare astral projector who wandered too far. But because of my desperation, they found Tamara. She was respected, seasoned, trusted, 20 years of experience, a business with real credibility, and a following of people searching for help. I handed them their perfect vessel. Now they don't need to hunt. The victims come willingly. They pay to be devoured. Every booked session with Tamara's body is a soul offered up. And if you look closely at her photo on the new site, really look, You'll notice her eyes aren't green anymore. They're blue, faintly glowing, a signature if you know what to look for. If I hadn't gone to her for help, if I hadn't led them to her soul would still be intact, her life and her body would still be hers, and they'd still be groping through the dark. Now they have a storefront. I've tried everything. I've contacted the police, the FBI, anyone who might listen. But no one takes a man with pending assault and kidnapping charges seriously when he starts talking about demons and soul possession. They think I'm mentally breaking. I've called the number on the site, voicemail, left warnings in the review section, filtered out. I even tracked down some of the people who left glowing testimonials. The ones who responded seemed fine. Almost too fine. Most of you reading this will assume I'm insane. But if you've ever had sleep paralysis, felt watched in your sleep, or woken up feeling not entirely alone, be careful. Don't trust anyone offering overnight astral therapy. Don't let anyone guide your projection. And if you ever find yourself floating outside your body, get back inside immediately. These things are patient, strategic. They've learned how to bait us with our own needs and fears. If anyone reading this has booked a session with the Third Eye Emporium or any similar service, cancel it. Cancel it now and never look back. Either way, I had to tell someone the truth before I can't. If you are reading or listening to this now, know the truth. If you ever experience anything like what I've described, remember what I've told you. And remember that sometimes the help you seek becomes the very thing that destroys you. Hopefully, I will be back with good news in my next update.
The following is an article that was published in a local Ohio newspaper on February 15th. Local man acquitted in assault case. Local county resident Isaac M., 29, was acquitted of all charges yesterday in the assault and kidnapping case against local Ohio spiritual counselor Dr. Tamara R. The jury deliberated for less than 2 hours before returning a not guilty verdict on charges of assault and kidnapping. The case, which centered around an alleged attack at the defendant's home in November, took an unexpected turn when the victim, Dr. Tamara, testified that she had misremembered the events due to trauma from her injuries. I realize now that Isaac was not responsible for what happened to me that night, Ms. R stated in court. I was confused and scared, and I blamed an innocent man for something that was beyond his control. Defense attorney Michael Crest said his client was relieved and grateful for the verdict. This has been a nightmare for Isaac. He's a good man who was going through a difficult time and sought legitimate help for his problems. The prosecution declined to comment on the verdict. Isaac M. has since returned to his home and is said to be recovering well from his ordeal. Update, March 18th. Third Eye Emporium, client testimonials. Dr. Tamara saved my life. Isaac M.
I can't begin to express my gratitude to Dr. Tamara for what she did for me. When I first came to her, I was experiencing severe sleep paralysis and what I thought were supernatural encounters. I was terrified, desperate, and on the verge of a complete breakdown. Dr. Tamara's overnight therapy sessions were exactly what I needed. She helped me understand that what I was experiencing wasn't demonic harassment at all, but severe psychological trauma manifesting as sleep disorders. Through her expert guidance and spiritual healing, I was able to confront my fears and reclaim my life. The transformation has been incredible. I sleep peacefully now, free from the nightmares and paralysis that once terrorized me. More importantly, I found a new purpose in helping others who suffer from similar afflictions. I now work closely with Dr. Tamara to assist other clients who are experiencing spiritual disturbances. There's something deeply fulfilling about being able to guide someone from darkness into light, to help them understand that what they think are supernatural threats are really just manifestations of their own troubled minds. If you're struggling with unexplained phenomena, sleep paralysis, or spiritual oppression, don't hesitate to book a session with Dr. Tamara. She has a gift for reaching people in their darkest moments and showing them the truth. The overnight sessions are intensive, but absolutely life-changing. Trust the process and trust Dr. Tamara. She knows exactly what you need. Book your overnight spiritual therapy session today. Dr. Tamara and I are here to help.
Contact Isaac directly for personal consultation. The Third Eye Emporium now offers enhanced group sessions with both Dr. Tamara and Isaac, providing dual spiritual guidance. Our success rate has never been higher.
Come experience the transformation that only true spiritual healing can provide.